I will today experiment with ink by inking this drawing I did in one of my sketchbooks. My goal is really to be bolder with ink. I will use different techniques, but the main one I will use for this drawing is a traditional dip pen with nibs. I will combine this technique with ink pens for the finest details. I will use brushes as well to create different effects, especially Chinese brushes to get some textures with the ink. And toward the ends, I will use a white acrylic Posca to make some highlights. As I said before, I wanted to be quite bold with ink for this drawing. I didn't want to do only line arts, but really use ink and the cross-hatching techniques to give depth and volume to the characters. These days, I'm really on a journey to learn more monochromatic drawings and paintings, something that I didn't really like before. I still prefer to use colors, but painting or drawing only with pencils, charcoal or ink is a good way to improve values and tones skills. So for this ink drawing, I really wanted to work on shadow and light and create a very sharp contrast. I do think it is a style which is becoming quite recurrent in my art. I like to explore painting and drawing with very dramatic contrast, it seems, so this one is not an exception. The subject of the painting lends itself well with the thematic of darkness and light, since I represented an angel holding by the hand a young man or boy in a type of mountainous landscape. The angel is showing the light coming from the sky to the young man as if he wants to show him the right way or the right path to God. We can say that this drawing has a metaphoric and spiritual meaning. The mountainous landscape symbolizes a difficult place to live with many struggles and obstacles, we are all confronting to in our life. The angel represents our strengths to go through these difficulties in our life and how it is possible, if we believe, to find light and hope in spite of all the problems in our life or in this world. We should all still hope for better days, even if it is difficult to move on in the darkness. Darkness for me does not always mean something negative, since I represented in this drawing a night sky with beautiful stars. Darkness is a part of this journey. We can find beauty in darkness, and without darkness, the light would not be that beautiful and shining. So darkness is necessary in a way to give light a more deep and important meaning to our life. Now coming back on the inking process, I have to say I'm still not an expert of ink drawing. I would love to be an ink drawer like Gustave Doré, for example. I think he was one of the best artists making this type of traditional ink art, and I was very inspired by his art for this drawing. I will show you some of his arts on the screen so that you can have an idea of what I'm talking about. I tried my best to give a bit of this old-fashioned and vintage feeling to this drawing. I cross-hatched in different directions with different angles. Where it is darker, I overlapped many lines, sometimes not that successfully, but it was necessary to create an even stronger contrast with the beam of light coming from the sky. At the beginning, I was scared to lose details by overlapping so many layers, but it came out not that bad, especially the part with the plants and the rocks. I really enjoy doing the little cape of the boy and his curly hair as well. The part I'm less satisfied with is the angel's wings. I could have made them more refined. I think the feathers could have been better executed with less details. But I like his long hair moving in the light and the pleats of his robe. I drew a lot of lines on the boy's face since he is half in darkness compared to the angel who has a few lines since he is in the light. Now, to create a very strong contrast effect between night and light, I decided to go for it for the black by applying directly from the bottle the black ink with a brush. Maybe I should have cross-hatched the sky as well, but it felt more dramatic by painting directly with black ink. But the tricky part was to create a gradual effect from the dark sky to the light. I tried to create this effect by using a Chinese brush. I like Chinese brushes because they are very versatile. You can apply the color with textures because their bristles are quite uneven, and depending on how you hold the brush, you get many effects. With the Chinese brush, I was able to create this uneven and texturous rays of light that I filled afterwards with ink pens when it was necessary. I also used a normal brush to add some diluted black ink to enhance some shadows. Then I cross-hatched over it to add more volume. The tree in the background was the most difficult to apprehend. At first it was detailed, but I thought that she should not be as visible as the ones in the foreground since it is in the background and in the darkness. So I covered it with black ink finally. I withdrew over it and finally I used some white marker acrylic to make it gleam slightly so that we can see it but not really, if it makes sense. I'm not a fan at all with acrylic, but it was necessary to use some white acrylic to really make pop out the white highlights for the stars especially. And I used as well white acrylic to reintroduce some white in the rays of light and to erase some parts of the angel's ears and wings to give these feelings that the light blinds his contour. Light really works in a strange way if you notice. The more light, the less contours you have. Then a bit less light, you see clearly the contours. Then shadow comes and the contour again starts to fade away. Enough with talking, I will just let you watch the rest of the process. Sometimes there will be some faint music that I was listening to while inking. Sometimes there is no music. Maybe I will add a bit of classical music. I hope it will be still enjoyable to watch the way it is. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to leave a comment below. May you find your light as well. See you soon.